honestly, the numbers don't lie. Even just last week, I had to meet with my CFO, and the productivity before I assumed responsibility of the unit was essentially all in the red, which for those who don't know is bad. I got my results last week and everything was green. So my productivity has gone up. My team members have gone up. I just hired 2 more people today. So I am using the assessment in my 9 to 5 and essentially crushing it.
Happy Wednesday, my winners and goal getters. How are you? Welcome back to the Getting the Win show. I'm your host, Melissa Thomas. And today we've got an interesting one. So today we're going to kind of go back to procrastination in the workplace, but we're also going to do a bit of a case study as it relates to the flight assessment. You guys have heard a couple of other guests talk about it. You've heard me mention it very briefly. But in terms of understanding yourself and understanding the people around you and how to overcome procrastination as it relates to facing your own fears in the workplace, or basically overcoming any walls that are in the way of getting results, and what that looks like when you finally overcome those fears and obstacles, and what you're capable of when you do. I'll be interviewing Yolonda Brown. I mean, she's a great example of what's possible once you basically punch through anything that's bugging you to get through to those results. Check it out. Welcome everybody to the Getting the Win show. As promised in the intro, you see the beautiful lady here, Miss Yolonda Brown. Yolonda, thank you so much for being on the show.
Oh, it is my pleasure to be here with you today, Melissa.
Awesome. So obviously you've recently underwent a very intriguing process. Like once you got the certification for extreme execution, and there was a bit of a transition in terms of incorporating it in your workplace, because you have a regular 9 to 5 as well. So kind of walk us through that journey, and particularly how you were able to kind of overcome your fear, because I know fear can be a reason for people to procrastinate, but you were able to overcome yours. So kind of walk us through that.
So for me, my 9 to 5 is a high pace, high stress job. I'm a nurse. I work in an operating room, and I was forced into a position of leadership on a level that I had never experienced. So managing a team of like 72 people and being responsible for budgets, staff satisfaction, patient satisfaction, surgeon satisfaction. It was a lot, and I didn't have a lot of resources. So this has kind of happened simultaneously as I'm going through the extreme execution training. And I was having a lot of difficulty with my team members to help me, because I essentially was alone as far as support from leadership. There wasn't a lot of people to help me on the day-to-day, because essentially I was a staff member one day on one level, and the next day I'm managing 72 people. So I started to listen to the team members, like what their complaints were, things that were wrong on the unit, listening to the surgeons, and even pulling our staff satisfaction scores. And what I noticed was a lot of people were working outside of their superpower. They were used to being asked to do things that really weren't, it just wasn't in their bandwidth to do, or it created that adaptive trait that is so hard for people to kind of like function in at a regular basis. So with the assessment, I just started focusing on people's superpowers and built a team that allowed me to hire, you ready for this? In 6 months, I hired 15 people.
Oh.
In 6 months, I hired 15 people in 6 months, and decreased the attrition rate on my unit to less than 0.8%.
Whoa. Okay. So slow down. For those who may not know what an attrition rate is, just kind of break that down. What does that mean?
So attrition essentially is when people quit, right? So attrition is essentially you have a team member and for one reason or another, they leave. And so because finding trained OR staff is so hard, when one of these team members leaves, it directly impacts the unit. Now,
Mm-hmm.
I am a part of a large academic medical center with multiple campuses. And because my vice president has had to sign off on all of these new hires, she came to me one day and said, "What are you doing?" And I
Yeah,
said,
good
"Well,
results.
uh, it's this assessment that I'm using." And so she says, "Tell me a little bit more about the assessment." So that kind of started this journey for me. And honestly, the numbers don't lie. Even just last week, I had to meet with my CFO, and the productivity before I assumed responsibility of the unit was essentially all in the red, which for those who don't know is bad. Um, I got my results last week and everything was green. So
Oh,
my productivity has gone up. My team members have gone up. I just hired 2 more people today. So I am using the assessment in my 9 to 5 and essentially crushing it. So
wow.
yeah,
That is awesome. First of all, congrats. That is
thank
huge.
you.
Okay. Being able to decrease your churn rate to 0.8% is amazing, especially for someone that was put in that leadership position and was not quite ready for it. Like you're like, what y'all need me to do now?
Right. It was hard because I had done mid-level management, just day-to-day team stuff, just schedules. But when it came down to like the nuts and bolts and the true finances of it all, it was something that I had never done before. So yeah, the assessment really helped me, especially to get team member buy-in. And so now it's a good day when I can have people help me.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So we're gonna get into that. We're gonna get into that. Um, as I mentioned earlier, obviously there was a point in the process between you having the conversation with your VP and where you are now, where you were like, I'm kind of afraid, but I need to do this afraid. Kind of talk about that. Like, what was that for you? What was that like for you?
So it was uncomfortable. I think that's the best way to put it because um, I felt like I was in a position where I couldn't fail because
Mm,
if I wasn't successful, then people could get hurt. Which my 9 to 5 as a nurse was really really important. So I had to use the assessment in a way. One, the self assessment component of was huge for me to figure out, okay, when do I need to be in those adaptive ranges, but still staying true to my GC with that empathy and making sure the team members needed what they needed, but being able to get those results. So, being uncomfortable um, was the hardest thing for me. And just reaching out for those resources to kind of set those boundaries. So when
mm.
I knew I was having to go into an uncomfortable situation, I was able to control it a little bit better. So that was really important, like establishing those boundaries in this new space for myself.
Okay, so let's walk this back a little bit. Talk about the resources that you use to kind of establish that comfort level to go into, to go to face the challenge. Are we talking about people? Are we talking about research? Maybe talking to higher ups? Like, what was your process?
So it was a combination of both. Like research and what people needed and how to get people to be effective and have that team member buy-in. But the boundaries piece was through some coaching within the community. It allowed me to set a standard that people had to adhere to, and maintaining that standard, because without it I wouldn't have been able to walk into the space, because ultimately I had to function at a different level.
Mm-hmm.
And the leadership resources were available, but not to the level that I needed them. it was more of a reach out to say, if you need anything, just let me know. But my day to day was different from someone else's day to day. So, step one really was looking at everything that I had to do, right?
Mm.
So the ATC in me needed to make a list, and what I needed to accomplish. So making those lists, like what my day to day consisted of, when I needed to do certain things, how reports needed to come out, when I had to, like, what was affecting my bottom line, people staying over, people picking up extra shifts, decrease OR census. I didn't need as many people as I needed. So really truly breaking down what that day to day that affected the money. And then, the people component, like, were people happy with their work-life balance? I sent out multiple surveys to
Mm.
find out what would make this a good place for you to work. How often do you like me to ask you to work over? How do you like to be recognized for a job well done? And then composing all of those things and truly like remembering those things. I put things up in my office as a reminder, like, oh, this is so and so's birthday, or this is this person's 15-year anniversary here, or,
Oh, that's good.
this team member just had a loss in their family, and making sure I was cognizant of those things. And whether it was, I don't like the pomp and circumstance, but just I was thinking about you today. I'm sorry if there's anything that you need, just let me know. Or if you need to leave early one day this week, just let me know. Those things have made a huge difference. So making a list, for the tangible items, but then not, forgetting the human component that made those tangible items, that made the people want to do those action items to help me with. So that's kind of what I did to kind of walk through the process.
Wow. Those are a lot of nuggets in there. Hopefully y'all caught some of those things. But given your day to day, I do want to ask, like, what was that energy like in terms of now keeping track of 72 people, like keeping track of those birthdays, of those anniversaries, of the tragedies? Because I know those are additional tasks on top of what you're already doing. Obviously important things, by the way, if you're watching. This is not me trying to justify not doing that. But
So
just
honestly,
yeah, go ahead.
yeah. So believe it or not, the assessment. So knowing that I have some flight attendants the in my environment, I kind of pull those people in to say, hey, these are the birthdays for the month. These are the people
Nice.
that have events coming up. These are the people who like to be recognized this way. Can you help me make sure we don't miss these people? And so with that, I have a group of like four team members that they remind me, hey, it's so and so's birthday. Um, don't forget this, or do you want to order some cookies? And it's one of those things
Awesome.
where, they'll do it for me. And then it comes from the unit, and um, we keep cards and things, and they just put it out at the desk and fill them out. So I don't feel alone in the process anymore, because I am recognizing people's personality styles without actually giving them the assessment and
Nice.
having them help me.
Awesome. That's beautiful. So if you're watching, this goes back to what I mentioned before, the principle of who, not how. Like, there are times when you don't necessarily have to do the task yourself. If you're in a situation where you can recruit help from the people around you, by all means do that. Yolanda proved that with what she shared. And just so you're aware, you're hearing her say a lot of um, terms that may sound like jargon. You guys have heard me mention the flight assessment in previous episodes. So if you want to learn more, just go to www.flightassessment.com. Be sure to take your flight assessment. It's a small investment, but it makes all the difference in the world, because not only do you learn more about yourself, but you also learn more about the people around you. The same way Yolanda was able to leverage her knowledge of the assessment she took for herself, she was then able to figure out the people around her and how they tick, which made all the difference in the workplace.
Absolutely.
Wow. So talk about where things are right now. Like, what is the system now as it relates to the assessment? Is it something that you now regularly use? Do they want you to do quarterly coaching? Like, what is that looking like now?
So right now, within my department, my unit is running pretty well. So my vice president actually just took her assessment, and she has asked me to present the assessment at our next leadership meeting. So I will be able to do leadership coaching. And she has decided to be vulnerable with her assessment with everyone for me to use it as a teaching tool. So I'm
Wow.
excited about that. Yeah, she is 100%. But she's bought in. So yeah, so I'm
That's
excited about that.
that's amazing. That is
Yeah.
amazing. So talk about very briefly as we start to wrap up here, because obviously that's work life. So talk about how the assessment has helped you grow in terms of your home life. We know you have your awesome husband Terrence, and you both have taken the assessment. Talk about how that helped you guys grow closer together and how that has helped your family grow.
So for us, the communication component was huge with us because my husband is a high pilot, so he's very direct and he's very results driven. But for myself, being more on the empathetic side and the more into the feelings, sometimes it's like we're speaking two different languages.
Polar
Um,
opposite.
yes. So now, when we talk, we have this. We say very frequently. So what I'm hearing you say is
That part,
this.
that part.
Um, or we'll say to each other, so what results are you trying to get? I mean, just last evening we were having a conversation. It's like, what are the results that you would like to see, and tell me what that looks like? Because I know for him it is very much about the result. And
Hmm.
for myself, it's, trying to make sure there's no collateral damage in the conversation. So you know, it's almost like having to translate to each other, but I know we have that safe communication now. Whereas before, people would get frustrated and just not talk because it's like, you don't understand what I'm saying. I don't understand what you're saying. So it's just better if we're just quiet, which of course doesn't solve anything. But now we are able to have those conversations and say, with those with those extra, just tell me what it is that you need me to do. So yeah,
Hmm.
that's how the assessment is helping us as a married couple.
Awesome. Awesome. So you who's watching out there, the beautiful thing about the assessment is it not only helps you understand yourself and the people around you, but it does help provide the language you need to start communicating how you feel to other people. And also, as Yolanda's explaining, communicate in a way that another person understands based on what you realize their disposition is. So give you guys a brief rundown. She mentioned her husband's a pilot, so very direct, very visionary, very driven, very results oriented, moves very fast. So if you hear us say the word pilot, just think speed. Okay. Don't waste the pilot's time. Um, as you heard her mention before about herself, GC, you heard those words, GC. It means grounds crew. So if you think about the airport, who are the grounds crew? The people who are typically they're behind the scenes. You see them, but you don't necessarily hear them unless they're the ones working the gate that scan your boarding pass. Those grounds crew you'll hear talk, but everybody else, they're busy because they're the hands and feet of the operation. They're loading up the luggage, they're gassing up the plane, they're loading the food on the plane. Those are your folks that are support. They're your support staff. They're very empathetic, as Yolanda mentioned about herself. And then you heard her mention flight attendant. That's another part of her personality. Who's the flight attendant? The flight attendant is the one that walks up and down the cabin and is making sure that every passenger has a great experience. those are your energetic people. Like they're the ones that talk a lot. They're highly social. They're highly outgoing. They love creating a great experience. And then you heard her mention ATC. That's short for air traffic control. So those are your very detail oriented people. Those are people you absolutely don't see, like, period. So think about your friend group that doesn't necessarily like going to parties. Like, they'll go to support you, but they ain't trying to be in a huge crowd of people, right? But they're highly detail oriented. They will see your pitfalls as you're moving along, even if you don't see them. That's the beauty of your air traffic controls. And each of those four have their respective role and, as she mentioned, superpower in the workplace and in the family. You know, it's helpful to learn what each person's superpowers are, and the assessment gives you the keywords and the language to communicate with each one. Just wanted to give them that overview. But yeah, Yolanda, the floor is yours to wrap things up.
What I can say is that, I did struggle with procrastination a lot, and sometimes I still do, but I have to go back to the basics and make a list and prioritize and write things down, because, paper doesn't lie.
It
you,
doesn't.
you can say things all day, but if you write it down, you have a visual, and something that you can go back to and say, hey, I didn't do these things. So what I can tell you is that the assessment has helped me, um, to be more self-aware and to recognize those triggers when I am about to procrastinate or about to do something that I may not necessarily feel like doing, but now I'm a lot more aware, to get the things done that I need to get done. And Melissa, thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. And, thanks for reiterating, the tools that you use in terms of how you face procrastination. And hey, continue to watch the Getting the Win show. As you guys can see, like, all of the interviews are stacking up. Everyone is reiterating many of the key principles that I've shared in the show. So continue to stay tuned to this. Where can people learn more about you, Yolanda, and kind of keep up with what you're doing?
So right now, I want you to look out for the noeticnurse.com. We are doing some leadership training for healthcare professionals. We want people to stay in their lane. So leadership, empathizing, make sure you are noetic, and we are going to empower everyone. So that's where you can find me.
And spell that out for those who want to do the search.
Noetic, Noetic.
Awesome. Noetic nurse, everybody. Thank you so much, Yolanda. It has been a pleasure. And hey, the door is always open. Would love to welcome you back on the show. If you have any big announcements or milestones, or even just to check back in and let folks know how you've continued to progress in your journey, we'd love to have you back.
Absolutely. Anytime.
Was that an awesome interview or what? All right, you guys, make sure to check her out at noeticnurse.com and follow her on the socials at noeticnurse, or at her full name, Yolanda Brown, on Facebook. But yeah, be sure to keep up with her. She's going to be a force to be reckoned with going forward, man. I'm super proud of Yolanda, and I'm honored to know her, and I'm honored I get to share her with you as a great example of what's possible once you take full inventory of yourself and of the things that may be causing you pause to sit on the luxury item, and how to get out of your own way, or how to overcome the things that are in your way, so that you can continue to push forward on that luxury item, and hashtag get on that. All right. So if you like this episode, be sure to hit like on the video, share it, all that fun stuff. And of course, if you haven't subscribed yet, be sure to do that. Subscribe, youtube.com/@gettingthewin. And then you can find me on Instagram, Threads, and Pinterest at Getting the Win Show. All right. So the winning move for today's episode is to, one, go to flightassessment.com. If you haven't already taken your flight assessment, make the small investment. It's worth it, I promise you, to learn who you are. Fully get a snapshot of who you are as you are right now. When you go through the assessment and answer the questions, answer them honestly. Nobody's judging you. You won't be under pressure from anybody, and it's not a test. It's basically you learning more about yourself. So answer the questions honestly based on who you are right now. And you'll be able to get a full 19-page report. You'll be able to see all the results, and then also have an idea of who the people around you are or what their superpowers may be based on the 4 personality types, the 4 natural personality types. So keep in mind, every human being is all 4 types: pilot, flight attendant, ground crew, air traffic control. We all have all 4 in us, but we have varying levels, and we call it our superpower based on the one that we flow most naturally in. All right, so get to learn more about yourself. That is the winning move for this week. And then start to apply that in terms of apply what you learned to what you're procrastinating on, and how you can kind of work around those obstacles, or how you can recruit people to help you overcome those obstacles. Remember, who, not how. All right. And as I always mention, overcoming procrastination isn't all about time management. We all get the same 24 hours in a day. It's about emotion management. And when you take the flight assessment, you will learn your relationship with emotions. Whether you're somebody who doesn't necessarily hold them in high regard, you're all about the task. And perhaps it's a situation where that may need to be factored in a little bit more, or you're someone who leans very deeply into your emotions, and you may need to kind of dial that back just a little bit. You can't become numb to your emotions. You are who you are. But learning how to gauge that per situation that you're in, and having that greater awareness of what's possible for you. So this was a bit of a longer episode, but I hope this episode brought you value and that it's a big help to you. Again, leave your comments below. Let me know your aha moments, and I will see you next Wednesday. Have a great rest of your week. Peace. And it is the holiday season, guys, so be sure to check out the merch shop. If you are curious about the shirt, you want one for yourself, you can go to gettingthewingear.com. That way you'll see this shirt, you'll see a bunch of other accessories as well. We've got hoodies, we've got sweats, we've got all the gifts that you could possibly want to buy for yourself and for your folks to get the message out about being as productive as possible and staying true to yourself. Because the mission of this show is to turn procrastinators into producers. That's why I always task you guys to hashtag get on that. Make sure you're on top of your luxury item. And that way you can rock the gear to remind the world that you are all about that luxury item. You are all about getting things done, getting the goals instead of simply setting them.